Imagine you're strolling through your local library and The Handmaid's Tale is nowhere to be found. Is it part of some dystopian fiction? No. It's a reality that's spreading across North America.
Alberta's new order to purge school libraries of sexually explicit content is creating a wave of controversy.
More than 200 books are going to be pulled from Edmonton Public Schools this fall.
The school board says they're banning books deemed sexually explicit for students in kindergarten to grade 12.
Trying to take sexually explicit content out of elementary schools that is inappropriate for me to show on the television news at night, and so it is inappropriate for 7-year-olds.
My name's Christian Hayward. I'm a student here at Western in the Masters in Media, Journalism, and Communication program, and I believe that banning books bans learning. A couple of weeks ago, the Edmonton School Board listed over 200 books, many of which are literary classics, to be removed from school libraries. And then in response to that, the federal government issued a softer, more stripped back ban that focuses more on limiting access to texts with sexual depictions, mostly sexual illustrations, and anything that can be interpreted as very explicit material. Some of those included Orwell's 1984, Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and then the one sort of at the forefront that everyone's talking about just because it's such a, beloved Canadian classic is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Book bans, specifically in North America, are nothing new. Throughout the 20th century, they've been really prominent, especially down in the US. We've seen a lot of books being regularly challenged every few years. Toni Morrison was a very famous American writer who wrote a lot about PTSD surrounding slavery and racial conflicts. Her books are often censored, but I would also say in recent years, states like Florida and Texas have been banning a lot of books pertaining to diversity, equity, and inclusion, largely due to the Trump administration's crackdown on that. I'm speaking on this from two different perspectives. One, as a reader, as someone who did my undergrad at Western in English, and then the other half as a writer, as someone who has written fiction for years, and I love storytelling. On the reader side, I'm scared that people, specifically people who don't read as much or read very casually, aren't having access to these amazing books that they otherwise could have access to. And then as a writer, I'm also worried about it because there's just such amazing, poetry and storytelling that's just, again, not inspiring the next generation. It's sort of the classic 1984 idea of newspeak that if people have a lower vocabulary, they'll think with a lower vocabulary, right? If we don't have access to this amazing poetry and prose, then we won't be able to use it to our advantage, really. The famous poet Ovid from ancient Rome had a book called The Art of Love that was very controversial at the time due to its explicit mentions of, sexual love and courtship, which now in retrospect is problematic, but at the time it was sort of indicative of just mentioning these things, which was against Roman legislation at the time. Whereas now the issue we have with it is more to do with consent and stuff like that. But still, it was burned, it was banned, Ovid was publicly condemned for it. So again, we're going all the way back to ancient Rome, and then fast forward to now, we're still seeing not necessarily the same thing, but a sort of mutation of that same thing. The issue with banning books really comes down to inhibiting people's right to come to their own opinions. If I read a book that I think is a little bit problematic, yeah, I can disagree with it because I like to think I'm a critical thinker, and there's a possibility I might agree with it, but people need the choice to at least come to that decision on their own. If you're banning books and taking those resources away from people, then how are they supposed to come to their own opinions? A lot of the complaints and issues people have with all books being accessible comes down to, I think, religion, politics, and parents worrying about their kids, all of which are completely valid. I think people should care about their religious ideology. People should really stay in line with their politics and their values, and people definitely should worry about their kids. These issues won't go away by banning books because they already exist on the internet to a much more amplified degree. Before we even worry about what kids are having access to in schools, we need to worry about what they have access to on the internet regularly, especially with AI, which is just developing faster and faster. I can't imagine books will stop being banned anytime soon, but I hope that in a changing world, we still value literature, and especially the books we might not like.